Hmm. Testing one, testing two. Testing one, testing two.
Hi, David. Oops, sorry. Let me just get my, oh, you're on mute.
My speech.
Hello.
Okay, unmuted. Yeah, I'm unmuted. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm well. I don't see your video on.
Oh, let me.
You're much more attractive than a black screen. Hey, there you go. And guess what? Your background is perfect.
Oh, good.
Good.
Finally.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. I'm actually in Palm Springs.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, you crazy person. What are you
I
doing down
know.
there?
We're here for about 6 weeks. John is will be golfing and working. We're still on Toronto time, so we wake up at 5 here, which is nice because the sun is up already at 5, unlike Toronto if you're getting up at 5.
Hold it now, Palm Springs. Oh, California.
Yes,
I
California.
was thinking Florida. Okay,
Florida.
wow.
Yeah, everyone thinks that.
Right. Okay. Well, how about that?
Yeah.
Is he working or is this just a long holiday?
No, he's working. Probably for another 2 weeks he'll be working, and then it will be just holiday.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
So you'll be there over Christmas and is it Hanukkah? What's the Jewish holiday
Yeah.
coming up?
Hanukkah, exactly.
That's soon.
Yes.
And
Actually, Hanukkah changes every year. So
yeah, I
I
know.
think this year, I don't know actually if it's in a few weeks or if it's towards the latter end, like closer to Christmas this year.
Right, right. You did it right. You had the in your throat. You got Hanukkah. Yeah, you got to have that. You got to have
Lots of
that
practice.
phlegm in your throat, right?
Yeah.
Before I forget, have you gotten anywhere with Joanne and a three-way call about?
Yes, I did mention this to her a few weeks ago, actually, and she was eager. So let me bug her again.
Right.
I think it's probably slowing down for her, so I'm sure she'll have time.
Okay.
Generally, I know she used to do like other webinars for her company and other stuff during the
Yeah.
week, but I'm
Okay.
sure as the weeks go on, like this next week probably or the week after, it will be a lot slower.
Okay. Because I was inspired by her thought about the science center. I never even thought of that.
Yeah, she said she's attended a few of them there, and there's lots of parking, she says, which is great. There's a few, corporate hotels near there as well.
Right.
It's close to highways and such,
Right.
and just a bit of a different. And she also said they handle all the food as well there. So
Good.
you don't have to coordinate outside catering or anything.
Okay. Well, then if I have time, I might just reach out to them and see what they have.
Yeah.
What else am I going to ask you? I don't know. I did make a list. It seems the day just goes on, and next thing you know, you're in front of the camera doing a webinar.
Yeah.
This is our second last one, I believe. We have one more.
Yes.
And did you see my email last night thanking
Oh.
the two ladies for
Oh, yes, their
4th
confirmation.
of June? Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw, oh, sorry. I saw the email, I think it was from today, that they sent you a title.
Yes.
Okay, sleep disorder. I'm just pulling it up here. Sorry, sleep disordered breathing in pediatrics. Okay.
Whatever it was, right. So you
Okay.
can post that. I think I said, I kind of
Great.
prompted them saying, if you get us a title, at least we'll put it on our website. I know you won't advertise it for a while, but it's January the 4th. So is that going to be creating a problem? It's going to be right at the end of the holiday season. Will you want to send out a few notices through the Christmas week maybe? And then,
Yeah, maybe we should do that. I mean, I'm sure people will still be at home. They're not going to be busy with work. So I
right.
think that'd be good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll send out more emails than normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe even one before Christmas. Because I'm
Sure.
back on the Tuesday, which I think is the 3rd. Yeah.
Okay.
New Year's Day is a Sunday, so we'll take Monday as a holiday and come to work. Can you send me a link to, oh, I see Manisha just sent a notice. Can you handle that?
Yes, I can do that right now. There we go.
Okay.
What were we saying?
Mhm.
Yeah, so when I send out the next email for our December webinar, I can include the January
4th, yeah.
webinar on the calendar that usually accompanies it in the bottom of the email.
Oh, good. That'd be great. I think I reached out to Daniel Clowers gal again, and of course, no response.
Okay.
A couple of people I approached for the fall said, I'll defer to the new year. So this weekend, I'll search out who those people were. These are all names that most of them are not known to me, but came through the member survey.
Okay.
Here she comes. And so we'll see what happens. But I would like to get a date nailed for our meeting. If it's going to be in the spring, we got to advertise that pretty soon.
And Simi had replied and said that she was going to reach out to them. So
good. And that's one right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Here comes Dr. Witmans.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi team. For some reason I can't get my video to work. This is not good.
That's okay. Let's try doing something.
Bianca can walk you through it.
Let me just see if there's anything. See if anything changes there. I'm going to make you a co-host. Maybe that will help.
I had to update some, my Zoom needed updating before I was allowed on. So maybe that's a problem for her.
I'm gonna click stop video. Oh, it's gone now.
Well, I did this before and it worked with you guys, but for some reason it's not working today. Maybe do you think I need to stop my presentation from PowerPoint before it'll let me do that? It shouldn't matter because I'm not even sharing my screen with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not sharing our screen yet.
No. Yeah.
Let's try. Maybe if you share the screen.
You know what? The other thing is that the link I joined in as a participant, would that make a difference?
I don't think so because I just made you a co-host just now.
Oh, okay.
Let me
still
see more.
No, it's still not working. That's so weird. I don't understand why.
I'm gonna try clicking this. That will not allow people to
let me leave and come back, okay? Let's see.
Okay, good idea.
Okay. Anything new that I should be aware of?
Nope.
So we'll do the normal thing, and then you can come on and do a little chat in the business section.
Yes.
You do that so well.
Oh, thank you.
I think at the outset you're a bit nervous about it, but you handle it so well. You're wearing your role well, because director of communications knows all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm just the ideas guy. So she's gone totally. All right.
Yeah. So she's gonna come back in.
Yeah.
That's very odd. I've never had that
Well,
problem.
yeah, I often just tap the register link myself from the email. Tonight it wanted me to re-register.
Yeah.
So I just went to my desktop and Zoom and opened it, but it prompted all the updates, which didn't take a long time because I'm at the office. And then it came on instantly. So here she comes again.
Here we are.
We can see her name, Manisha.
There we
you
go.
Oh, yay!
Hey!
Hallelujah. Oh,
So
this is so stressful for the moment till it works, right? Sorry.
Always that in that moment. All right. So I've
Yeah.
made you co-host.
Okay, perfect.
You should see this share screen button now at the bottom. Once again,
Okay.
it's the bright green button.
Awesome. Okay. There we go.
That's
Look at
it.
that
Okay.
background. Wow.
It's on the edge of the cliff on not very far from here. So let's see. What are you seeing now? Are
We
you seeing-
see your Zoom desktop. So
Okay,
yep,
so
I can see
there
you
we go.
going to open it.
Okay. There. Can
Perfect.
you see my presentation now?
Your presentation, I can see you talking.
Perfect.
And do you have
Awesome.
any audio or videos in your presentation?
No, I don't. This is very old school. It's too bad. I had a mom just sent me videos today, and it's
Oh,
such
really?
a shame because I was showing the LPN I work with. I said, "Oh, look, there's this and this and this and this." She said, "Wow, you can tell so much." It's too bad. No, I'm not showing that because I didn't get permission from mom. So
That's okay. The
unfortunate.
next one will happen.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe in January.
I think we have about 28 registered.
Okay. Who are they? Do you know who, like, are they myofunctional people, dental people? Like, who's coming?
I don't know. I don't,
be-
I could just see their names,
Sorry.
but I wouldn't
Okay.
know. Yeah.
Okay. Can you
They're-
show us their name? Can you show us your screen and I'll tell you who they are? Maybe?
They're
For
mostly
some
dentists, Manisha. They're
Okay.
mostly dentists.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We
I
don't
can
have.
show it to you after. I can't pull it up now, but I can send you
Don't
the
worry. Don't worry.
registration.
It's okay. It's okay.
I
Don't
guess
worry.
we'll find out.
Don't worry.
Yeah, it'd be cool if you registered and you can put in your you know, what your focus is or what your interest
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
or-
Yeah.
That'd be good
Only
insight.
because for the speaker that's presenting, if you have a sense of who they are, then we
Right.
can make it even more targeted, right? You can give
Yeah.
it to
Right.
the person presenting so they can look up the areas of interest or address that on the questions or whatever. So
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we do it. You remember from before that we do questions and answers at the end. So.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
this
for
is,
sure.
this is member only, educational tool, and I'm not even sure if we have even a non-dentist as a member yet. Sad, but that's the
Me.
reality.
Me. Hey, me.
Well, you're an honorary member. That's right. Bianca, do you want to just have a run through her slides to make sure it works
Sure.
okay?
Good idea. Let's just click through a few of them. Perfect.
Yeah, it's good.
Yep.
Good.
All good.
Looks great here.
Great.
Okay, so we're so organized. We're ahead of schedule and everything. This is great.
Yeah. We only have 3 in the waiting room right now, but I'm sure they'll all trickle in. We have Lori Jones, Tamari Height, and Paulette Pillersdorf.
Oh, okay. Well, it's only 7:28. As you remember, Manisha, we generally hang on for a little while until we get.
Yeah, it's all
Right.
good. Don't worry.
How long are you thinking your topic is tonight?
An hour?
Okay, that's good. And then we'll give you a break and then we'll go to questions.
Sure.
We want
If
to,
you-
we like to wrap it up in 90 minutes. So I
Okay.
know you're
So
2
don't
hours.
don't talk forever, right? That's what you're saying in
didn't
a
say-
really polite way.
I didn't say that.
No, it's okay. You don't have to. Will
um,
you introduce the talk in January? Then I won't about the one that Tam and I are gonna do together. Would you mind?
Well, actually, do you want me to do it or you want to do it yourself?
You do it if you don't mind.
Okay.
If you
Bianca,
don't
I
mind.
have
Yeah.
David, I have the title here.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the comment section too, so that you can see it.
Okay, all right. I just got finished work myself and I knew the title had come in, but Bianca actually has it. So, yeah, I think what I'll do in introducing you, I'll just mention you're coming back in January with Dr. Haight. And
Height,
is that,
height, yeah, height, yeah,
pronounce it height,
height, yep,
like Height.
yep, that's right, height, yep,
Height, only it's spelled Hait. Okay.
right.
Height. Yeah, I'll do that
Okay,
because I'm gonna, part of my introduction will be, this is our second last before the Christmas holidays, and you'll be soon right after. So we want to, Bianca and I was talking about strategies to make sure people don't fall asleep during the holidays and miss it. So yeah, I'll do that as well.
okay,
And,
perfect.
I just sent it to you, David, in the chat.
oh, wonderful. So now I have to be able to read this tiny box. Okay.
The
Yep.
only reason I'm asking you to announce it than me, so it doesn't look like I'm, what's the word?
Promoting.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
there,
Oh,
there you go. Thank you, Bianca. Thank
Yeah.
God for you.
yeah. No, that's totally fine. I'll do that for sure. And I'm really excited about tonight. We, as you can imagine, everybody comes in with their Fitbit and all their
Yes,
gadgets that
yes,
they bought
yes.
on Amazon. And hey, Doc, am I okay? No.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no
so,
kidding, right?
Yeah. So do you happen to know Lee Sirkin?
Nope.
He's
Who's
on our,
that?
he's on our advisory council. You can look him up. I want to get this right. He's a physician and a cardiologist, and he runs his own academy in the States,
Oh, cool.
North Carolina. And I asked him about this topic a few years ago, not on a public forum, but
Yeah.
his feeling was by the time these devices get on the market, they're already outdated for whatever set of reasons, technology or new research or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just kind of poo-pooed them and said, we can't stop people from buying them, but we got to make sure they understand it's not the same as an HST or a PSG. So I'm hoping you might talk on that.
I'm gonna dispel the myths. This technology is incredible. In fact, it's so complicated. I don't even think we understand it enough or understand all of what its capability is. Think of it like all you get to see, if I were to tell you, is like the outside. You get to see a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, or a Bugatti, if you will, or whatever. It's like, wow, that is stunning. And we're still learning because it takes everything and it mathematically it summarizes it in a way that's meaningful to a sleep doctor. But to tease it apart is hard because it needs mathematical modeling for every specific thing to figure out what the components are. So I have, I was actually speaking to the owner, Dr. Magnus Dotir, and she said they're running a trial in kids in Iceland, and everyone, it's so sensitive. It is so sensitive that it's overly inclusive in some ways. Like everyone, all the kids have an AHI of 1. So they shifted the needle to AHI of 2. So even that AHI of 2 to 5, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean you need treatment. It could be a marker of like inflammation elsewhere or something that's bothering the child that's showing up as a flag, kind of like say a low grade temperature, like 38 degrees would be my guess. It doesn't mean that it's house on fire. It doesn't mean anything needs to be done necessarily, right? So it's so complicated that I think we're still learning. I think it can differentiate atrial fib. It can tell you about PLMs. The data about that hasn't been published for them to use it diagnostically, but really the technology is incredible. And I think it just gets better and better. No different than our tools, right? I don't know, you guys are out east. There might be some sailors in the audience. There used to be a time where you used the stars and, landmarks and the sun to figure out where you are in space and time, and compasses. And now, with a computer, you can talk about tide and all these other things, and everything is so easy. So it's just like that, like you look at the iPhone or whatever, right? Like you look at how powerful it is. It's bigger than all the most complex computers that they used to have in the 60s at the Pentagon, right? Like the technology is so incredible. I can't remember what's the law. There's a law. Nope, I can't remember the law, but it's that there's a doubling of the technology and power, like every time it evolves. There's
Right.
a word for that. I can't
Yeah.
remember the law, but
Yeah. Okay.
anyways, in computing.
Right. Right. Bianca, I'm not seeing anybody in the waiting room. Am I missing something?
Dr.
Yeah,
Height is
there's
in the
people.
waiting
Do you want
room.
me to, do you want me to mix
Yes,
them all?
yes, please, yes.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. Evening, folks. David Rawson here with Bianca. It's just a little, 7:35. We're just a little slow in getting going tonight. So I'll just chat a bit as we fill our seats tonight with a lot of the regulars, and I see some new faces, which is very good. And going to welcome you to another exciting webinar through the Academy. This is our 38th bi-weekly webinar that we started at the outset of what we thought was going to be a very short pandemic. We have one more scheduled presentation in 2 weeks, and then we'll be taking a break for the Christmas and holiday season. And I'll announce in a few minutes what you can expect after that. We'll wait till we get most of the folks entered and seated and get yourselves organized. If there's anyone that's new tonight that I don't recognize, the rules are quite simple. We ask you to mute your microphone. It's your choice whether or not you want to turn off your video as well. Most people do. Out of respect for the speaker, if it's a quiet room, there's no distraction. And at the end of the talk, which will be about a 60-minute one tonight, we'll take a break for 5 minutes or so. Bianca and I will do a short business session, and then we invite our speaker back to have questions and answers. And again, for the regulars, the questions and answers happen through the following means. You will be invited to send those questions to me directly through the chat box, and I will present them to the speaker in the order they're received. This allows you to be anonymous and ask whatever question you want. And at the end of that, if there's still time and energy, we open it to oral questions, and you can speak directly to the speaker at the end. So it gives a good chance for everyone to flush out any things they missed in the topic. And what we typically find is it also introduces some concepts that we hadn't thought of, and even some names of speakers that you might like to have. So that's kind of the way it works. And I'm hoping that in another few minutes, we'll have our room filled with people. I see a lot of names of folks that have been with us from the start. We appreciate your support. We very desperately look to you folks for direction and where you'd like us to go next. Feel free to send to Bianca or myself either a subject title or a speaker that you would like to have. We're still working on the list of people that we got through our summer poll. And as you can imagine, some of these are very busy people and declined to come on in our fall session, but promised to consider us for the spring session, which will start right after Christmas. So I think it's appropriate that we now come to order. I want to welcome you all to webinar number 38. As I said, it's our second last one before Christmas. I'm very excited about the topic because I get a lot of questions in my office, and I'm sure you do too, about, hey doc, what about these wearables? If I buy something on Amazon, is it the same as coming to you? And of course, we know the answer is not. Dr. Manisha Witmans has been with us just recently in September, and her topic tonight is wearable technology for diagnosing OSA in sleep medicine. And before I forget, you need to know it's not on the website yet, but Dr. Witmans will be joined by Dr. Tammy Height in, I think it's our first one after Christmas. And I have to read the title because it's quite a long one. Sleep Disordered Breathing in Pediatrics and the Importance of Synergistic Collaboration, Case Presentation. That's by Drs. Height and Witmans right after the holidays. So you'll find information about that on the website soon. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome back to our podium tonight, Dr. Witmans, who's going to speak on technology for diagnosing OSA in sleep medicine. And for those of you who have yet to hear her very short bio is this. Dr. Witmans is a board certified sleep specialist. She has collaboratively worked with dentists over 20 years. Can you imagine that? Doctors working with us? I am so jealous. to manage airways and associated sleep disordered breathing. Currently, she has a busy private practice in Edmonton. Her expertise in sleep medicine has enabled her to play an integral part in the development of current international guidelines on the use of polysomnic PSGs in pediatric respiratory and non-respiratory sleep disorders. She has several publications and collaborations to her name and is a sought-after journal and grant reviewer. She's involved with numerous committees to help address sleep problems in children nationally and internationally. Dr. Witmans, it's a pleasure to welcome you back. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much for that lovely and kind introduction, and it's an honor to be invited back. So I wanted to spend the next while talking about wearable technology. I have a little bit of a bias. I'm going to speak and focus mostly on sleep image because there are over 85 publications related to this technology. The other bias is I love it so much and I hassle them so much that they have asked me to be on their advisory board to assist them in terms of the science or questions they might have from a pediatric point of view. It is validated and approved in kids 2 and up. And I believe the Sleep Hub in Ontario is actually using that. Dr. Sanjeev Jain, he's a family doctor and a sleep medicine physician, and he provides support and use of this technology for adult OSA, but I don't believe he's doing any pediatric OSA or doing that work using this technology. So your default, unfortunately, is still PSG because HSAT in Ontario doesn't seem to be a thing, unlike the West. So without further ado, let's talk about this. So my only disclosure and conflict is that I'm on the advisory board of Sleep Image. So what I'd like to talk about is talk about the limitations of overnight PSG. You already know them. They're impossible to get, and you know, it's one night in the lab, and then talk about common wearables on the market. I'm just going to keep this brief. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the bottom line is just what Dr. Rawson said, is that most of that stuff is not validated. In my mind, it's like a thermometer. You know, it's interesting. I had a family, they came in with their sick child and they said, oh, the thermometer read 43 degrees, okay, Celsius. I'm like, that thermometer cannot be right. It's not possible to have 43 degrees on a thermometer on a kid and you're not in the hospital and super sick. That doesn't make sense to me. So sometimes, or no different than a stove, right? Or even an odometer. If you speak like I do, the odometer might say 100, your iPhone says 102 or 105 or whatever, and the cruise control says a little bit different. So there is some variability in that. So buyer beware, and but Sleep Image is an FDA approved, validated technology, and it's pretty sensitive. So in terms of Fitbit or other things, for the interest of time, I'm not going to talk about it. I could spend a whole hour. There is some literature on the AASM side if you're interested. WatchPat would be the closest. It is approved, and it is used in adults, but you can't tell about airflow because it is just a watch that you wear, and it doesn't tell you about position, and that would be the same limitation here as well. And then we're going to talk about the evolving technology, and I think as the science gets better and better and better, and we can measure more and more things remotely like this, you know, there's ways that people can keep track of their heart rhythm and whether, you know, their blood glucose and all sorts of interesting things. So I think it's just a function of physiology being able to be measured more dynamically and in real time as Bluetooth and all these things evolve and are better. So you already know, if you've used any of these, that the application of wearables is everywhere. You know, I'm waiting for the day where some of this stuff is actually implemented in the car and the human, so it actually objectively measures alertness or sleepiness. So it's already used in healthcare and fitness. You can, it's on your iWatch or your Garmin or whatever you're using. Navigation, I was just telling Dr. Rawson before, the old days we used to use navigation with the compass and the stars and the sun, and now it's become so much more complicated and so much more comprehensive that you can predict storms in the water or the sea or whatever, and predict changing weather patterns. It's used for security and tracking people and things, tracking your kids on your phone or whatever have you, important in communication. And you know what? I think Zoom or the pandemic has really accelerated the role of technology in communication. Essentially, it has taken away the distance, the time, because you can communicate with anyone, anywhere, in terms of like Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, Teams, Microsoft. So it's taken away that barriers that we used to have in terms of, you know, time change, location, space, and that's really accelerated all those things. And then, you know, we use it for event organization for sure. So the ideal principles, like if we were to have a magic wand, what would you want something portable to be? We want it to be portable. We want it to be the equivalent of a PSG, but super easy. We want it to be small and unintrusive. We want it to be ambient, so it doesn't require anything special or specific. You want it to be ubiquitous and efficient. And it has to be valid. So if it's a bullseye, like you want to, like that thermometer, you want to be able to make sure that it's measuring the right thing, that it really is measuring a temperature and it's not giving you a speed instead, and it's reliable, that that a yes really is a yes and a no really is a no, and it's personal and very specific. So all these things make whatever technology you're using super important. And the further away you are from the mark of the bullseye, the less trust can be placed on whatever you're measuring. So it'd be no different than that thermometer registering at, say, 43 degrees or 48 degrees. You already know it's not okay. Or a sat probe that reads 102%, it's not even possible. It's 100 or it's not, right? Or a sat probe beyond under 80% is not as valid either, because in that hemoglobin dissociation curve, it's really hard to know whether the PaO2 is 60 or 80. So all these things really matter. We want to measure the right thing. So, you know, I run a private sleep lab as well, and we were meeting a bunch of doctors this morning, and it's so complicated. We look at these things at 30-second intervals. We look at the EEG, and we look at the chin tone, and we look at EMG and the heart rate and airflow and what the chest is doing and what the abdomen's doing and whether they're moving their legs. And then we collect all of that data 30 seconds at a time, and then give you this hypnogram at the end that tells you that the person was awake and then went into lighter sleep, so lighter sleep, stage 1, 2, deeper sleep. This is where sleepwalking and things like that happen. And then this is REM sleep. And as the night progresses, there's more and more REM. So we reviewed 2 adolescents last night. Adolescents need 9.5 hours of sleep, and they're only getting 8.5. And in that time, that elite athlete is getting up at 6:30. She's actually missing her whole REM period. And the presentation is for excessive daytime sleepiness. Without even looking at anything, I can already tell you that she is incredibly sleep deprived. Okay, as an elite athlete who's on the ice very early and playing hockey late, she has already curtailed her sleep, and that is a problem for most of our society. So we're taking all of this really complex physiological data and drawing you a map of this, and that's basically what sleep image is doing. So when you tease it apart, it's like layers of an onion. There's a lot more there than meets the eye. Okay, so remember, there are PSG is still the gold standard, and clinical actigraphy is used for sleep onset or offset, and he can tell you about periodic limb movements. The best thing it's used for is a tracker for insomnia or a circadian rhythm movement or circadian rhythm related problems. So there are many unregulated tools in the market that track your sleep. An Aura ring is better if you've seen it. They have teamed up with Gucci, and it's a ring that measures sleep onset and offset. They have more data, but it's still not as robust as the sleep image. The watch pet diagnoses sleep apnea, but even in terms of how it measures sleep is limited. Okay, so why do we care? What's the big deal? A PSG is the best. Well, the PSG is only one night in the lab, and I believe Ontario has rules that, you know, there are limits to who can be studied and when and how often, and it's not feasible to implement that regularly. Ontario and even Canada, it is incredibly a huge country. Okay, how do you support the person that lives in the most northern tip of Ontario? It's not easy for them to get to, you know, anywhere like close to Thunder Bay or Toronto or wherever to get their PSG. So we need something that's portable and accessible and widely available. And sleep in the lab is fundamentally different from what would be seen sleeping. It's not more natural, but their regular environment. Okay, so the in general, the lab is kept way cooler. It's hypoallergenic. There's not other things that may play a role, like, you know, for example, environmental tobacco smoke, mold in the house, other pets, animals. Like I said, it's colder. The humidity may be different. It's generally hypoallergenic. So clearly, whatever you get in the lab, and it's a strange environment. So what you get in the lab is not representative of that person's sleep all the time. I'll give you another example. Another 17-year-old from last night's sleep study. She sleeps prone all night, meaning she sleeps on her belly and very little on her side. And she's having events even on her belly. So should she ever sleep on her back, I would expect she would have insomnia and keep repeatedly waking up, because sleep apnea typically is worse on her back, but she never sleeps on her back. So even what we measure for sleep apnea in the prone position is likely underestimated. And it doesn't account for night to night variability or differences. So is it conceivable that someone's going to sleep terribly if they have a bad cold? Absolutely. Are they going to sleep terribly if they're at altitude? Yep. If you're a climber, or, you know, you have been somewhere like Nepal, it could really mitigate or not mitigate, worsen your insomnia. Allergy season is bad. You know, lots of things can affect that, and it's highly specialized. So it's interesting. I have been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell you there is not a day that doesn't go by where I'm asking questions and learning something new. And a PSG is costly and not scalable. They're impossible to get. You're lucky in Ontario, where it's covered and widely available provincially. We're not as blessed out west, and you know, it is expensive. And we also need an easy way to assess efficacy and compliance, because a repeat sleep study is very difficult. So ProSomnus has a tracker built in based on the temperature right in the device. So it's temperature sensitive. So they already know that if the device is out of the mouth because it tracks at 34 degrees, then it's not going to track. So that's helpful. But to look at sleep specifically, even that device can't do it, and CPAP can't do it. CPAP tells you whether there's apneas or not, and what the AHI was, and how long they wore it, and if there was a leak, but it tells you nothing about sleep quality or quantity or sleep latency or circadian rhythm stuff. So we need better tools to be able to measure things with more precision and accuracy. It's no different than laser measuring the airway as opposed to human measuring it. Okay, I presented this before, but just to reiterate, insomnia can be a disorder or it can be a symptom. Hypersomnia or daytime sleepiness can be a disorder or it can be a symptom. And it's really important to listen and look at all the things to help us determine if it counts as a symptom or a disorder. And there are recommendations for what normal sleep quality and quantity is appropriate. And you can appreciate that if you don't sleep well, or you sleep too much or too little, it has been associated with adverse outcomes. There is emerging literature that shows that this is a U-shaped curve. And there's a study recently out of Europe that showed that if you do CBTI, so if you teach someone sleep coaching and sleep hygiene and cognitive behavioral therapy, it will not help for a naturally short sleeper. So if you have someone who is a 5-hour sleeper, it won't help. And they're still at risk for all of these things, because if they sleep too little, the airway still is paramount and super important. I borrowed this slide from Vivos, and I want to credit them for it. I love this slide. I think that the compromised airway is at the root of everything, and the environment or the ground the root grows in also makes a difference. You all know this, so I'm not going to belabor this because this is your area of expertise in terms of tongue and teeth and what they do and the dental arches and all of that. But what I'm going to tell you is that if the ground isn't supportive of that tree or root, it's going to show up. It's going to show up some way in their symptoms. And if the airway isn't robust enough, wide enough, big enough to support the human, you're going to see it in different things like bedwetting and dark circles and school troubles and allergies and chronic headaches and nightmares and blah, 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 ADHD or whatever. An airway that isn't big enough, wide enough, and isn't function in the way it needs to is going to show up as a problem, whether it's periodic limb movements or, anxiety or depression. It doesn't matter. It's going to show up. So a tree that is healthy means that people sleep well, they breathe well, they eat well, they grow well, they can use their executive function. I might have mentioned this to you before, and this really is a take-home slide. Each of us knows only a part. Despite 20 years and working with all of you, I only know a little bit. To find out the whole truth, we must put all the parts together. So come in January where we can talk about this. Without a tusk, an elephant wouldn't be an elephant, right? But without the size and the magnanimity or how big it is, it's hard to know what to call it. It could be a warthog or a wild boar and still have a tusk. So the tusk isn't specific, but all these things help tell us what it is. And it's important that we all take off our blinders to appreciate the elephant in the room. Once we know it's an elephant in the room, then we collectively work together how to figure out what to do about the elephant and where it needs to go and how best to get there. So in my mind, the airway, in terms of its size, its shape, its functionality, is incredibly complicated. And in fact, a wonder of the world. It's an engineering feat and in some ways a nightmare. It's a blessing and a burden, if you will, because state dependency makes things floppy and collapsible, and inflammation plays a role, structure plays a role, the strength of the human plays a role, how well the person is nourished, exercise, anti-inflamed plays a role, and how much people sleep. So in terms of the airway, it is super complicated, and there's so many moving parts. It's important to think about this in a three-dimensional dynamic kind of view, because that will help you appreciate that it may not be just about the OAT, it may not be just about the myofunctional therapy, and it may not be just about the CPAP, but it's the right thing at the right time for the right person. Okay. I want to thank Dr. Height's daughter, Grace, who is an engineer, and she can work out the math for this. I'm not not that brilliant, but I love this table. I came across it, and it's incredible. There is nothing supporting it except that little one metal piece in the middle, but it is beautiful. It stands up and it works at a table, and it does what it's supposed to. So in my mind, mindset is important, because you know, you look at these airways of some people and you think, my God, how is it that you can even breathe through that straw and they feel fine? There's something about them. They're an outlier, as Malcolm Gladwell would say, and I would love to study them to see why they're so happy and healthy and flourishing, because they are unique. But movement and breath and diet and inflammation all work together. So the post of this table, along with that little central pivoting thing with the airway, all these pieces work together to keep the table upright. And it's important that we consider the parts and help the individual in terms of optimizing the airway. I love this poster. It's so fascinating. I was at the ESRS in Greece recently in September, and the title is Multidisciplinary Intervention Therapy on a Pediatric Sleep Disorder When Sleep is More Than Sleep. So you can't see this very well, but this young man had alopecia totalis. So you see he's bald. He's not a man. He's just a 14-year-old boy, and he was getting all these treatments. Well, thankfully, lucky for him, he came across a sleep doctor who diagnosed his sleep apnea and did the appropriate things, and widen his palate and did what they needed to, and look at his hair grew back. So it's amazing that being bald can be a function of an unsupported airway. So I'm not saying that I think that the airway is pivotal in supporting our being. Life and breath and airway are critical, and sleep. So it's important. It shows up in some way for sure. And it's a matter of trying to figure out what that looks like and where and how and for whom. So this is an example of an overnight polysomnogram. Look at all the stickers. Okay, it takes 45 minutes to an hour. So we studied 17-year-old Down syndrome. That's almost, maybe not 17, a little bit. She has Down syndrome, and she's almost nonverbal. It's so interesting. She let us put all that stuff on, and she let us put CPAP on last night, and she slept with it, and she didn't take it off. And everyone is gobsmacked, because how could she tolerate that? Because it helps. If you do the right thing for the right person, despite what you might think, they will ask for it and be thankful to you that they want it. We had another 13-year-old, I believe, no, 10-year-old, another patient. The mom bought the CPAP off the internet, and the reason she wanted the study is because she wanted him to come off CPAP. Unfortunately, he still needs it, and he loves it. Okay. And the sleep study shows that when we put him on CPAP, he is incredible. He sleeps well. He has beautiful dream sleep. He clearly needs it. We need to look at what other things make him dependent on it. But mom didn't even seek out any medical care. She just went online and did her research and bought him his CPAP. And so I wonder how many others are out there that we don't even know about. And as the technology gets better and better, look at this guy. This ring measures a lot of the things that this little guy has measured or is having measured more individually, and this is a comprehensive collective view of that. So this was really complicated, and it requires experienced people that know what they're doing, whereas this is a simple method of a ring. It won't tell you about sleep position, but it tells you the central and peripheral integration of the autonomic nervous system. So it looks at heart rate variability and breathing as a function of the central nervous system to define sleep and sleep stages. So they put their ring on, they attach it to a mobile app that's collecting data. It's automatically uploaded to a cloud, automatically analyzed. This is FDA approved, and the sleep report is available within minutes, and you can do multiple nights. So to reiterate that boy I was telling you, when we look at the signals from one night, this is all the things that we were looking at, all these squiggles at 30 seconds at a time. People are like, why can't I have the report in the morning? You can't, because it is a lot to go through all of that. And there's no way we can do it fast enough to service all the humans. But what the sleep image does is it takes sleep and it looks at the brain activity, looks at the cortical changes, it processes that and collects the EEG signal, and it signal processes that and figures out what the interpretation of that could be. That's how the sleep study looks at. And then the peripheral activity, there's heart rate variability and breathing changes, and there's a signal for that. The signal is processed, and then there's an interpretation to go with that. And our job is to put those pieces together to figure out what does what. So when we look all of that together, there is coherence and there's spectral power that is used to quantify that degree of CPC. And what they do is it takes cardiopulmonary coupling is how it's figured out. It takes the power of the heart rate variability that looks like a certain pattern based on a respiratory rate and frequency. And it takes that breath rate variability, which is also a different frequency and power, and it combines them together to look at coherence. And when you look at the cross spectral power, this is what it looks like. So it's mathematically done. There's in a PSG, when we score it, there's a lot of human error that comes with it and bias, but this is all math. Like there are answers, and it's all math, and you can't make it up. And so basically at a given frequency, whatever that frequency is, both signals have relatively large oscillations, and the signals are coupled and they're synchronized, and at a given frequency there's coherence, and they're calculated that way. And then the synchronization changes depending on the sleep stage you're at, and based on that we can figure out whether it's stable sleep, like non-REM sleep, like stage 3 or stage 3-4. Well, stage 3 in the new nomenclature, or unstable sleep, which could be light sleep, stage 1, 2, and REM sleep. Okay, so it basically breaks that down. So sleep is broken down into REM and non-REM, stable and unstable sleep, normal or whereas pathology like recurrent respiratory desaturations, it looks at fragmentation and periodicity. So all of that is luckily put together by the computer because it thinks much faster than we can to figure out what is actually going on. So how does that relate to each other? When you look at a PSG, there's things you taught. Stage 1 is when there's falling asleep and they're drifting in and out of sleep, and it's brief. It makes up less than 5% of the night. Stage 2, where the brain waves slow down a little bit more, there's bursts of theta, and there's eye movements that stop, and this makes up 45 to 55% of the night. And then stage N3 is deep sleep or slow wave sleep. It's usually less than 20% of the night. Older adults have much less of it. And then REM sleep or dream sleep is where people dream and their the body is paralyzed. And we measure where they're having trouble, because anyone is more likely to have trouble with their breathing and REM sleep. So on the CPC side, it looks like low frequency coupling, and I'll show you that. Those are the orange, or like the lighter bluer bars. And then the high frequency is stable sleep. So those are the dark blue bars that are this color. And then REM is also very specific. Okay. And so based on that, we get a report of what's going on that night. So it's FDA cleared in ages 2 and up. They can be used by patients in their home. There's no consumables, so it's great. So there's not stuff being stuck in the nose, no risk of infection. You can have multi-night testing, and the data is streamed over Bluetooth. You can do it anywhere in the world. There's an app, it's iOS or Android based, and then it is HIPAA compliant. So HIPAA in Alberta compliant, or Canada as well. It's cloud-based and the data is processed. It is approved in Europe and Canada as well. And so it generates a sleep report. So the good news about that is it tells you, if you're a dentist or, a hygienist or whoever, what is actually going on at night and how this works out. So here is the dark blue lines, which is stable stable sleep, and then the unstable sleep or stage 1, 2 is the lighter blue, and then wake is the yellow, bright yellow sunlight, and the REM is the orange. Okay. And so it gives you all sorts of things. It has a concordance with PSG of 98%. So basically what this has done is made it easy for all this data to be in a place where everyone can access it. The dentist, the sleep doctor, even the pediatrician or whoever have you, and it uses cloud-based, and the sleep team can communicate through a centralized portal. So then dentists tell me their story and what they have to say about the patient, and then I give them a report of what I read and what I saw. And it's great because it's much cheaper. There's more flexibility. There's scalability. It's super efficient. It gives us an opportunity to monitor different things. There's low risk, and you can, use it in the way you need to and use it collaboratively. And there are many studies that I mentioned. There's over 85. If you go to their website, you can look it up. It was 106 results. There's probably even more now. It's FDA cleared. And so when you look at the study, this is what the report looks like. It's beautiful and it's pretty. So here's an example. This is interesting. This is a 30-some-year-old man. Sometimes I just get the report and no data with it. Okay. And so this is the report, and I said, oh, that's interesting. He took it off at 2:30 and didn't put it on until 4:30. So he wasn't wearing it he had it off, or there's no signal that night. I'm like, but I don't understand. Why does this look so terrible compared to the rest of the night? Well, it had just so happened that he had had a drink. And so when the alcohol metabolizes from the liver, metabolizes the alcohol, he's wide awake. He's looking for the party, and it takes time for him to fall asleep. So I actually asked whether he had been drinking earlier in the night, and sure enough he had, because the rest of the night looks beautiful and very different. So the story matters. I can read the report, but what you find out makes a big difference. So this person, this is an interesting patient. He's a 40-some-year-old. He slept well, and he had severe sleep apnea, and he might even have periodic limb movements. He had REM sleep and unstable and stable sleep. And then it tells you, what time he went to bed, so you can figure out shift work and circadian rhythm disorder, how long someone sleeps for, how long that person was awake for through the night, how many times they went back to sleep and woke up again. Sleep image. There's 1 hour and 33 minutes with the saturation below 90. So it tells me hypoxemia. So if there's a lot of hypoxemia, I'm looking for comorbid cardiopulmonary disease or something else going on. It tells you apnea duration, heart rate, and whether the apnea is central or obstructive. And then oxygen desaturation index, so how many times the person desats per hour. So this is what the example would look like. So look at this person's sleep quality compared to the darker blue clouds here, where the sleep quality is better. This person has terrible. Look at the sleep quality is only 34%. There's not very many big blue mountains, very little. So this person's sleep is definitely not restorative. Okay. And then it's a matter of teasing out why might that be. And then this is another example. There's mild sleep apnea here. The sleep efficiency is a bit better, but still, so this is, sorry, hang on a second. This is an example of a patient who's a 60-year-old female, and I just wanted to show you what that looks like. It's mild sleep apnea. So you look at the mountains here, and there's a few desaturations here. The sleep is a little bit better, but the patient has mild sleep apnea. Here's another example of that. This is a 42-year-old male. The signal quality is excellent. He slept for 7 hours. He has incredible severe obstructive sleep apnea. He's not that hypoxic, and his sleep quality is terrible. And this is what he looks like. But this is interesting. This is in Denver, so he's sleeping at altitude, so he's going to have way more hypoxemia. When I was in Denver, I put the sleep image on and my saturation was only 87%. I put my CPAP and went to bed and it came up to 95%. So even altitude would make differences in what you're measuring. And so this is just an example of what that looks like. And I asked him if he had had a drink and he said yes. So it is incredibly neat. It tells you when he wakes up or when he woke up in the middle of the night. You know, he had really good sleep earlier on, and then the Blue Mountains go and he's more hypoxic at the end. And sure enough, he had had stuff to drink. But there's a lot that there's a lot that happens during the night than we appreciate. So I was speaking to the owner, Dr. Magnus Dotier. We had a meeting actually just a couple days ago, and she was looking at the sleep image study for one of her relatives. And at 4 p.m, the sleep looked like that. And she said, "What did you do? This is so different." She said that she, you know, meditated and went and had a nap. The rest of the night where her regular sleep looks like that, but after meditation, her sleep improved dramatically. So she's so stoked and looking to see what role there is for some of these other things. But, you know, it tells us so much. When they asked me to join their board, I said, this is so cool. I think in time it's going to be like a fingerprint. It's going to look different if you have fibromyalgia. It's going to look different for ADHD. It's going to look different for obstructive sleep apnea. It's going to look different for someone with periodic limb movements or Parkinson's or whatever. We just haven't done enough work to know what that blueprint for each person looks like. So this comes to why we all meet and why we fret and why we wonder. So you look at this, you send me the study and you say, what do you think? And I say, good golly, I haven't seen the patient. I need to know what the rest of the puzzle looks like. So part of the challenge I have is that I can read the study for you, but the answer is still in the patient. So what treatment do we use and for whom? So if I have a hammer, everything can look like a nail. And a hammer is perfect for a nail, but it might not be good for a screw. A drill would be better. But if you just have the drill, then you can't use the drill for a nail. You have to use the drill for that. Can I use a hammer for a staple or a thumbtack? I could. I could probably even use it for a paper clip. It wouldn't be wise. Would it do something? Absolutely. So when we think about what it is that we're doing for what patient and how, it is way more complicated. It's way more complicated. You have the person with the same AHI of say 5 or 10 or 30. Even you've seen this in PSGs. The AHI is 5, but that person cannot get out of bed. There's another person with an AHI of 100. They're hypoxic all night. We tell them their sleep study and they tell us to get lost because they sleep just fine. So the good news is that this is so complicated. It's going to take all of us to figure out the elephant in the room and to figure out how to help that elephant, what to do to care for the tusk, what to do to care for the tail, what to do to take care of the legs. Okay, so I can present some of this other stuff in January when I come back. You know, we could take days to talk about any of these things based on the science. So if I could leave you with any parting words, is to think about the tree and the human and what factors could be playing a role. You know, I tell patients the best analogy is the light not working. Usually the light bulb being burnt out is the best explanation. That's fine. But if the problem is the power's off, you will change so many light bulbs and you'll keep changing them and it won't make an iota of difference. All you had to do was turn on the power. Okay, so it's really important as you are the experts and strive to learn and grow in this field. This is way more complicated than what meets the eye. Okay, so I don't want to belabor this because it's been long. I want an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. And like that tree, boy, if you do this work, once you see it, there is no unseeing it. It is everywhere. It's like the trees, boy, they're everywhere. The question is it the right tree for the right environment? And you need objective measurements because we are past the point of using questionnaires. There are so many things that are available to give us more detailed, precise, comprehensive information that is important to connect the story to the findings, okay? And we need the right tool for the right job for the right patient. Just based on that hammer that I just showed you. These are Dr. Magnus Doter's words, and I love her words. She is so wise. She's has done a sleep medicine fellowship, and she's an internist. And she said, you know, because when she was talking to me about that relative in the sleep study, she said, you know, it still goes back to ask the patient. The answer is in their story, and the data is used to connect the dots and plan treatment. And we don't always know. We're all learning and growing together to support the tree. Okay, but the answer is always in the patient. Hippocrates said this, I don't know, 2000 years ago or whenever, that the premise is still the same. Use these tools to gather information and then say, okay, what do we do next and what might really help? And if you go back to that table that I showed you, there are very many things that come together to hold a table together. And it's a matter of figuring out what is that rate limiting step. You know, it is said that you can do 20% of work for 80% of the result, versus to do that last 20 to get the A+ or 90 is a lot more work, and you have to be much more precise to be a master chef and get a Michelin star equivalent, if you will. But all of us can do little and get huge gains for these patients that will help their life and make them feel better. And you and I, we need to work together because it takes a village to make all of this better. So, you know, to support the tree, it doesn't matter whether you're a dentist or a myofunctional therapist or a CPAP provider or a pediatrician or whoever you are, or a mortal living this blessed life. It will take all of us to support that tree of life. And I want to thank the team at Sleep Image for sharing their beautiful slides with me today, and I'll open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Witmans. That was a great topic. Just love your passion. You're so full of energy. It's just so enlightening to see someone at the end of a long day. It's almost 9 o'clock here in Ontario. I know you're in Alberta. So thank you so very much. As you know, we're going to give you a little break, 5 or 10 minutes, while we collect ourselves and have a bit of a business meeting. So feel free to step away and we'll have you back shortly. I see a few latecomers. I think you all are familiar with our program, but if you're not, please go to the chat group or the chat box in the bottom of your screen and type your question to me. They'll be presented to Dr. Witmans in the order they're received. And then at the end of the night, it looks like we might have time today because, excuse me, we'll open to oral questions. Dr. Witmans made reference to her coming back in January. It'll be our first topic right after the holiday season on the 4th. And if you go to the first entry in the chat box, you'll see the title, which is Sleep Disordered Breathing in Pediatrics and the Importance of Synergistic Collaboration. So Dr. Haidt and Dr. Witmans will be with us right after the holiday break. And we have one more presentation, Dr. John Tucker, in 2 weeks on the 7th of December. I believe that's the day. Anyway, so please send in your questions. They'll be presented by me in the order they're received. And I'd like to bring Bianca on. She's the wizard behind all of the technology and the great one to help answer any questions. She'll give you a rundown of the things we're doing, what we're going to do in the future. Bianca.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm just using a new headphone, so I'm not sure.
Maybe
it's
just up a
connected.
bit.
Let's see. Is that better?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. As always, please continue to send us any suggestions for topics, speakers, or if there's any particular resources you'd like to see. We've recently added some resources a few weeks ago that were provided by Dr. Haidt, and I think they would be particularly relevant for Dr. Haidt and Dr. Witmans' upcoming webinar in January, as the the resources are focused on pediatric sleep apnea. You can continue to find all the recordings in the recording section of the website. And what else is new? And as I'll put my email in the chat box for contacting me if you'd like to join our WhatsApp group. It's a great resource to reach out to fellow members, and also included in the chat group are a few people on our advisory team. So hopefully we can have a great discussion for any questions you might have about dental sleep medicine. And what else is there? I think that's everything. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Again, I'll put my email in the chat box.
Bianca, as you know, I'm too old to understand social media, but you're the queen of that. Are there any issues from that? Are we having any problems with anybody connecting with us? And how's the advertising going? As we
yeah, everything's going well. I did have an email actually from a member who had trouble accessing the slides from Dr. Bailey's most recent webinar. They're on the website under recordings, right underneath his most recent webinar recording box. You'll see a link for the PDF. I have fixed the link. If you do continue to have any issues, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I can send you a direct link as well.
Great. Thanks, Bianca. Folks, I think most of you know that I'm in a practice limited to TMJ and sleep therapy, so I don't have a general practice, and therefore I don't see children. But this isn't about me, it's about you. And so I'm really pleased to see that we've had a number of presentations for pediatrics and growing patients, because that's your practice, that's your reality. And you're going to be able to touch so many more people by being more aware of what to look for in your hygiene program, and as you see patients on a regular basis. So we're hoping this can round out your awareness and education to, within your own practice, provide a much higher level of care than you ever dreamt possible since you left dental school. I don't think there's anything else that we needed to tell you other than to check our website real soon for the January date. Our last one before Christmas is in 2 weeks with Dr. John Tucker. So I'm now going to go to the chat box, and I see that our guest speaker is back. Dr. Witmans is ready to take the question. So question number 1, is there a difference in symptoms between people lacking delta sleep versus people lacking REM sleep? Your video, you've muted yourself. Dr. Witmans,
You're still muted. Let me just
There.
see.
She's got her finger up. Okay,
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now we got you. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. I just didn't want you to hear dogs barking or whatever else. Anyways,
Did
sorry
you-
about that. Okay, is there a difference in symptoms between people who are lacking REM sleep versus delta sleep?
Correct.
Yes. I can't tell you that this is across the board, but for the ones that lack REM sleep, the way it would show up could be daytime sleepiness. I'm going to give you generalities of what I see because it doesn't necessarily ring true for every person, right? Because as you can see, sleep is complicated. So if they're lacking REM sleep, what does REM do? REM consolidates memories. So you might find that their learning is impaired, their working memory is impaired, their ability to be creative, ability to basically executive function would be where it would be affected. And then for how that shows up, whether it's ADHD or, irritability or daytime sleepiness, that's a little bit more of a complicated question. In terms of lack of deep sleep, that parasympathetic nervous system is super important. So if you go back to physiology in medical school or physiology in dental school, there are no lymphatics above the neck, okay? So the lymphatics in the head and brain, how that happens is there's venules that dilate during sleep and they become like lymphatic channel equivalent and wash out the toxins. So if you're not getting non-REM sleep where you're having an opportunity to do that, is it possible and conceivable that this person who doesn't have that kind of restorative sleep has a higher likelihood of being depressed or having mental health issues or having dementia early in life? Absolutely. I mean, it's not a slam dunk, right? It's gene plus environment and all these things we do. But you know, it could show up as end organ dysfunction where it is impacting their health for sure.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How do you measure upper airway resistance syndrome?
Okay, in a PSG, you'd be looking at nasal pressure in the thermistor. In sleep image, in this kind of technology, we're not measuring airflow at all, so it would be sleep fragmentation. Upper airway resistance implies that this person keeps repeatedly waking up, or they have arousals from a narrow airway, and because they arouse so much, they never desaturate. So the OSA or a sleep apnea index may be nothing. So if you're looking at Medibite or something like that, you're looking at RARAs, or on a PSG, you're looking at RARAs. There are ways to measure it for sure, but I'll tell you that this technology again is not a slam dunk, and there are many people that I think the sleep image is much more sensitive and is going to pick that up much more in terms of sleep fragmentation or some of these things. But UARS, basically, when you see them, if you think that their airway or tree is too small to support them, I say it rule of thirds. So the upper third, the middle third, and the lower third, it should all be in sync like a square, right? And then like a tic-tac box or tic-tac-toe box. There's the left side, middle, and the right side. It should all be equivalent and symmetric like the 9 boxes on a tic-tac-toe box. If it isn't, there's a narrowing somewhere. So you can already guess without doing too much and looking for objective measures that their sleep is fragmented. Then it's a question of going back to that hammer and all the things that you have. What tool do you use and how are you going to figure that out, and what are you going to do about it?
Great, thank you. Next question. What is the best and easiest way to measure kids' sleep, and what is the scope of treatment in young kids medically?
Oh my, that is a big question. Easiest, it's
Take your
wow.
time.
Yeah, easiest way to measure kids' sleep. You want something objective. You know what? The technology is moving so fast. You know, you can buy a sleep tracker on Amazon. So it's a light, it manages and it's tracking sleep. It's not validated. But wait, a month or 2 or 6 months of Amazon, I'm sure it'll be specific and sensitive enough to be able to do that. And it's basically like a light box that sits on one end of the room. In terms of like sleep image is good. It's validated up to kids under 2. The Aura Ring, I'm not sure. I don't believe that they have data on for kids. If you know the actigraphs, I used to own them. You need special like education to be able to score them and weed out artifact and all of that. An actigraph is another way to do that. All the iWatches and Fitbits and all of that, none of that stuff is validated. If you're using it to track, so let's say, could I use my hand on a child's forehead to gauge fever or not, assuming I can tell what a low-grade fever is, about 38 or whatever? I can keep measuring the temperature to know if it came down and went to normal or if it's higher. Okay, so some of these things that you can use that aren't validated, they can kind of help you to track, assuming we all know what yes is yes or what positive is positive and negative is negative. So in terms of scope of treatment in young kids, anything from making sure their diet isn't allergic, making sure that they're nose breathers, looking at tongue tie, removing their tonsils and adenoids if that's the case, checking checking them for asthma, checking them for allergies, checking their iron. Like, this is long. I could do a whole day of what treatments you could do for sleep problems in children. Probably a week or a month. This is a big question. It depends on what it. I would go back to the family and say, what is your concern and what it is that's really annoying you? And we can work through that some other time if you wanted, but I'm sorry, I won't be able to answer anyone's question, and I could talk to you from now till 2028 on that question. So if there's some specific thing you have, feel free to ask, but it's a huge topic.
Great, thank you. Now, a three-part question about Sleep Image. Where can we buy the CPC unit from Sleep Image? Do they provide support in Canada, and how much does it cost?
Okay, so there are different options. You can go directly to Sleep Image, like the website, and reach out to them specifically and directly. Sleep Hub in Ontario, Dr. Sanjeev Jain, you can look him up. He has a network as well. You could probably access it through him, and he provides education and help in that regard. And he works with a network of doctors, so that might be an option. I don't believe he does pediatrics, but don't quote me. And then how much does it cost? I'm not sure. The reason I think it's as much as $4.99 USD per ring, and then there's a cost to the reports because it's depending on usage. Don't quote me. I think you should reach out to them. It's a little bit of a moving target, right? It is Black Friday. You might, get some deals, or I don't hang, please don't quote me on the price because I could be wrong. But those are your options. Reach out directly to Sleep Image to talk about what the options are, or to reach out to Dr. Sanjeev Jain with Sleep Hub in Ontario.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to ask questions about sleep bruxism. So suggestions for measuring sleep bruxism at home, and would love to see how OAT and nasal dilators could impact sleep bruxism. OAT, oral appliance therapy, of course.
Yeah. So part of this is hard because in measuring bruxism, we have to put masseter leads, okay, even in the sleep lab, and we never do that. It's not for a sleep doctor, even, we don't do that. The person that does that a lot is Dr. Gilles Levine, and has 20 years of published research measuring, masseters and bruxism. And it would be a cool study to do. The problem even with this technology is it's not designed to measure bruxism. It would make a difference. My guess would be the nasal dilators and OAT are one part. Remember the elephant? So we're focusing on the mouth and we're focusing on the trunk. But what about the airway? What if they have something like celiac disease, or vocal cord nodules, or even papillomas, or subglottic stenosis, or like, there's so many other things that it could be, even allergies, reflux, a hiatal hernia, so many things could play a role in bruxism, that it's complicated, but it would be interesting. I haven't reviewed the literature myself, so I have nothing else to add, but if any of you know anything about that, please pipe up and unmute yourselves and jump in.
Okay, final written question. Are there any concerns for giving a 15-year-old male a Pantera sleep appliance? Has been changed from DSAD to Classic, but the typical nylon 3D printed appliance. Are there any concerns for prescribing that for a 15-year-old male to treat mild OSA? If you feel qualified to talk about that.
I'm sorry, absolutely not. I am not a dentist or an orthodontist. If there's, again, someone here that could answer that, please jump in, because I cannot. You know what? I'll tell you one thing that I've learned. I try and stay in my lane, because, even when people say, do you think I could use an appliance? I say, you know what? You should go see an airway dentist. I don't know what to tell you, because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, and I don't want to make a fool of me and tell you things that I know are going to be wrong. So again, if there's someone here that could answer that question, please reach out in your network, whoever that might be, or I can point you to some people that might be able to help you, but I am not. And there's so many devices on the market. Honestly, I can't keep them straight. I can barely
Right.
keep the CPAP devices on the market. I go to the NRT and say, hey, can you show me what mask would work for this face? And can you tell me what CPAP we could use? Because it's way, there's too much. It's very hard to keep a finger on the pulse about all these things.
Well, that's very, a very gracious way of backing out of that. And I fully expected you would want to pass it on. This might be a great way to introduce the oral section now. And given who I am, I would offer an answer to this member. And I don't see a contraindication for doing it. However, we all have to be careful of being, I think they call them sidewalk consultants. We don't know much about the patient, but that's at the close to the end of the growing phase. So you may want to be careful about committing the patient to appliance that may in fact not fit so well in a few years. But everything we do in dentistry to treat airway, mild is still a significant problem. And I'd be happy to speak to anyone privately about it. But I want to throw it open because I know there are a number of folks in the audience tonight who do as much sleep, if not more than I. And so let's start the oral section by having anyone who wants to address this question, unmute yourself and open your video so that we can see you, and raise a hand or just speak out. And let's have a little bit of a round robin discussion about this question about prescribing an oral appliance for a 15-year-old male. Who wants to be first before I pick somebody? Anybody feeling that they want to say something about the 15-year-old male and an oral appliance? Does anyone have experience with treating people that young? Okay, I won't intimidate you. I will let you think about it. We'll now go to the oral section for questions directly to the speaker. Does anyone have a question they would like to present directly to the speaker tonight? And if so, simply, again, open your mic and open your video, and let's hear from you. Something just happened.
Oh, I just
Okay.
I don't see
took the
anyone.
presentation
Right.
off. I took the
Okay.
presentation
Yeah.
off so we could see faces and people.
There we
and
go. Okay, so who would like to there? I think I recognize this lady.
Oh, Dr. Height.
Dr. Height, how are you doing? Your
Oh,
mic
actually,
is
you're
off.
just on mute still.
You're muted.
It's a
This.
blessing and a burden
Oh,
at the same
There
time.
we go. We can
There we
hear you
go.
now.
Now we can
I'm
hear
so
you.
sorry. I disconnected twice because of a poor connection. So I went to hardwire my computer in, and I missed it. And then when finally the sound came on, I heard you asking about a 15-year-old male device. And I thought, well, I could speak to that.
Okay.
But I finally just got my computer going. So I missed a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll have to listen to the recording. But Manisha, I thought your presentation was phenomenal. And I use the sleep image in my dental clinic like crazy. If any of you know what a dishwasher is and remember what it was like to wash dishes by hand before we got dishwashers, I felt like when I tested that product, I felt like I just got my first dishwasher. So it's brilliant to have in the dental office because it's so easy to test your patients from ages 2 to 100. And you can get the results right away. And as a dentist, like, you know, for a diagnosis, of course, we need Dr. Witmans or Dr. Sanjeev Jain in Ontario there can do the adults, but we need them to read the reports and get a diagnosis. But the nice thing about the sleep image ring is we can test the effectiveness of our appliances. Like when we're putting a mandibular advancement device in a patient, it's really nice to be able to test to see what their sleep apnea is as we're titrating it forward instead of just going by what a patient says. So that's really important in this when thinking about a 15-year-old, because what if you get a diagnosis of sleep apnea in a 15-year-old and, in children, mandibular advancement devices are not indicated. So what if you make just an upper maxillary expansion device and you test it, and then you make a lower one and put it in that holds the jaw forward, and you test the sleep apnea, and the sleep apnea is better in the kid? Well, you're using a device that's kind of off label, but it's effective, and you have something to support the design of your device to help with the craniofacial, just to help with the airway, really. So this is where medicine and dentistry need to collaborate. And, hopefully I use this dental devices on kids as they're indicated for. So when they, I can use a device for maxillary expansion, but I'm observing all the airway pieces as I'm treating the patient, and just documenting them and working with Manisha to make sure, the patient's actually getting better. So I guess we're the tusk part of the elephant, but there's a lot of other pieces, and I wouldn't be afraid to treat a kid at any age. And so I know there's data coming out and clinical trials being done with dental appliances and how they affect children's airways, as we dentists were trying to make the jaws, expand the jaws so the teeth fit in. And what we're going to be able to show our medical colleagues is that, in fact, we're improving their airways. And I think there's lots of different ways that dentists do that. And, if we shoot for that holy grail of treating sleep apnea, we need it to be accessible by all patients. It has to be simple to use. It's a device that needs to treat all levels of sleep apnea. And once you start testing children, you're going to find a lot of kids with severe sleep apnea that don't look like they have severe sleep apnea. But then when you expand their maxillas to just fit their teeth for orthodontic purposes, you'll see their symptoms of, that you learn about your patients with the dark circles under the eyes and their behavior and all those things. Bedwetting is a big one. You'll see those things go away, and you got to work with your medical colleagues, because the patient might be on medications to treat some of these things that
Right.
like ADHD and stuff. So.
I think I see a member wanting to present an oral question. Is that right, Dr. Meehan?
Oh, no, actually, I just thought I'd put my video on. I'm the one who
Oh.
asked the question. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful lecture today, and I appreciate, Dr. Hyde, all of your response to my question as well. Yeah, I'm actually meeting this young man tomorrow for the first time. He's 15 years old. My concern is always mandibular growth. Am I doing anything to prevent the forward and downward growth of the jaw by putting him in an appliance at such a young age? I don't know his concerns. I'm meeting him for the first time, but I thought the more knowledge I have, the better equipped I'll be to give him some proper direction when I do meet him tomorrow.
Can I tell you, I met a 15-year-old boy today. His BMI is 51. His tonsils are +3. And from a medical point of view, the ENT doctors won't even operate on him because he is morbidly obese, and the risk of postoperative complications are so high. He'd probably need to be monitored in ICU. And the answer is, oh, just lose weight. Well, he's 15. Okay, and he's a boy. They drop weight like that, and they're really active and busy. So he clearly has something going on that's wrong for him to be that morbidly obese, right? And it's like, oh yeah, well, you're just fat and you need to lose weight. Well, if it was that simple, we all would have a BMI of 18.
Right.
It clearly isn't. It wouldn't be a trillion
is
plus
that the number? Oh,
well, I don't know, whatever. Pick something else.
Yeah.
Pick 21, 24, whatever you like.
Yeah.
I
You're
picked
up-
18 because that 18 is adulthood, but whatever, doesn't matter.
You live out west. We have inflation in Ontario, so 18.
Okay.
28 or
well,
something.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Well,
All right.
maybe even so
Yeah.
the point is that even for him to have surgery, even if surgery is indicated, I'm not sure that I'm gonna find any NT surgeon to even take his tonsils out.
Yeah,
And I don't, based on the likelihood of failure or failure to cure, I'm not sure. Like even bariatric surgery does not normalize an AHI to under 5. And my answer to that is I can work out every day, but if I eat 3 squares at McDonald's, good luck with trying to move that barge and needle to do something else.
Right, right.
We have to be mindful. So there might be a role for an appliance. There was a systematic review in 2015 that said myofunctional therapy helps. So in a 15-year-old that's the size of an adult, there might be a role for that. But part of this is that it's super important that the beauty of it is that they'll never be, at this point, Amazon will never be able to do your job, because it's not here, here is the test and here is the diagnosis. It needs you to put the story together and give the treatment. So in that way it is a blessing. And it's important. You guys are smart people and you know what you're doing, and keep asking questions, and it has to be the right thing for that kid.
right, right.
And it's like a tree, right? So a tree has seasons, and a seedling is not the same as a mature tree.
Yeah,
The nutrients it needs aren't the same. So what he needs at 15 might be very different than he needs at 30 to when he needs at 5. And it's important that we be mindful of that. And even that tree, mango tree will never grow in Alaska. No matter what I think it's capable of doing,
mhm,
there's limits. So when you have people or children that have craniofacial disorders and syndromic things, there might be limits to what you and I can accomplish with surgery, with an appliance, with whatever. So we have to put that all in perspective.
yeah. No, thank you,
Thank you,
appreciate that.
ladies. Any more oral questions for either of our guests tonight? Any more oral questions? Just turn on your video, open your mic, and raise your hand, and we'll be glad. We've got about 5 more minutes, folks. So I see a few people dropping off, which is typical at the 90-minute mark. Dr.
I could
Witman.
add a little bit more
Okay.
for Promila there. Probably the best thing you can do for that patient is get him a diagnosis. And so it might be possible sleep apnea without a diagnosis. And then the second one might be maxillary deficiency. I don't know if that's the case.
Right. Well, I do have a sleep study. So it is a sleep physician that referred him to me. Mild
Yeah.
sleep apnea. His BMI was normal. I don't remember all the details. Low score. So that's why I don't know his story. I'm going to meet him tomorrow. I'm curious to know why mom
Are you-
booked him.
are you
and she said,
dentist?
I want you to consult and records for an oral appliance. So she's anxious. But
Yeah.
and so I thought the more I understand before I see him, the more I'll be able to ask the right question to figure out what to do for him.
So Dr. Whitmans is right about getting the story. So
Yes.
when you get the history and you find out maybe the tonsils were taken out, if the tonsils were taken out at 4 versus 12, and they had a whole history of breathing with their mouth open, that's an important part of the story.
Yeah.
Look for a tongue tie. If the maxilla is deficient, do the dental stuff you know how to do, or design plan for it. And then the cool thing about having a sleep study is you already have a baseline, and then you could do your dental stuff. And if your diagnosis is maxillary deficiency and you expand his arch, then just watch all the symptoms. You've got a full set of photos, and maybe the bottom jaw is trapped back because the upper jaw is narrow. All you have to do is develop the upper jaw, the bottom one comes forward. If the tongue is tied, that's going to affect it. Engage a myofunctional therapist, or maybe a lingual frenectomy.
Yeah.
I'm going to be teaching infant frenectomy in Toronto in February.
Oh,
And part of the informed consent for that is what happens to people whose tongue is tied when they're 16, when it could have been released as a baby. There's indications and research now out of Stanford that's really good on that. But I mean, those are the best that you can do. And like Dr. Whitman said, you just do your best and you do your thing, and you'll be surprised how much you're going to help that medical condition. And that's why that person's sending you this patient. And once you do a few of those patients, you go, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm really making a difference.
Right.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Final call for any other oral questions to either of the ladies with us tonight. Any more oral questions? We've answered all the written ones, so I think it's time to thank both the ladies who are here tonight with us. As some of you may know, these two ladies will be presenting right after Christmas, the 4th of January, I believe it is, or you'll get lots of notice, but they're doing a combination talk on pediatric sleep. And the title was in the chat box. I read it out to you, and you'll see that published real soon. So on behalf of the Academy, again, Dr. Witmans, thank you so very much. And
Thank you.
Dr. Haidt for joining us and for agreeing to co-present in about a month, I guess. So we wish everyone all the best for a healthy and happy holiday winter season. Where I live in London, we have no snow yet. And the older I get, the less I like snow. I'd love to be able to cut my grass year round, but it's, I know it's not that way everywhere. Out west, you're probably freezing and having lots of winter. So we'll see everyone in 2 weeks, and then we'll reconvene with these two ladies in early January. So thanks so much, folks. Good night.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy holidays. See ya.
Okay.
Just walking to a room that's a little more quiet.
Oh, I didn't hear anything.
Oh, okay. My dog has been acting up a little bit.
Oh, no, you took your dog to California too?
Yes, since we're here for that
Yeah,
long.
I guess so. Yeah.
She's older, so
For me,
she's older, so we just.
did
we
you
thought it'd
drive
be
or
best.
fly?
We flew.
Okay.
Well, actually, our flight was canceled. That was direct, and so we ended up going to San Diego and then driving through the mountains, which is a nice drive. Very scary.
Oh, right. Palm
could-
City, of course, right. Up in the mountains. I think I've been there. Yeah, that's a
Mm.
great spot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just make sure you come back. All right.
yeah, we'll be back.
Your green card will expire.
Yeah.
So that was shorter than I thought. She said it'd be a 60-minute talk. It was like
An
40
hour,
minutes, and then
40 minutes. Yeah, 45
Yeah.
minutes.
I
But I'm happy Dr. Haidt came on and spoke a little bit, because I think it will
Right.
give everyone a little bit of a taste of how they kind of work off
Right.
of each other too.
right. And what I tried to say is, you're all GPs, so think about incorporating this every day.
Right.
Okay. Is there
Or
anything
I
else?
will, no, I was gonna say that I'm gonna text Joanne,
Okay.
and then let you know when we can have a three-way call. Hopefully it will be this coming week.
Okay.
I don't see why it wouldn't be unless she's, busy with holiday things with work,
Sure.
but
Well, knowing her, it'll be in 20 minutes. We'll get everything we need from her,
I
right?
know.
Yeah. So we just have
Yeah.
to coordinate it with your time frame. You're what? 3 hours or
I'm
2 hours?
3 hours behind, but I'm still in Toronto time. So we wake up at 5 in the
Oh,
morning here. So we'll be,
oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, did
Just
you
for
do
the
that?
next 2 weeks.
Did you do that on purpose or?
Yeah, just so John can stay on top, and then he has his he's had the afternoon free here to golf. So
Oh, I
Um,
see. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Has he gotten over the baseball season disappointment yet, or?
It's funny, like the second that they're out, he doesn't even watch the other games. He's done.
Really?
He gets so emotional and upset that he doesn't even he won't even do anything to do with baseball.
It's probably just as well.
Yeah.
Can't be having a stroke. All right. Well, we know where each other is, and we'll
Yes.
talk whenever. Good stuff.
Okay, great. Have a lovely
Thanks.
evening.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.